Warning, this isn't your mom's bedtime story. The following content contains graphic gore, foul language, shocking scares, and enough big hair to make a glam rock band jealous. Once you press play on this tale, there's no stopping. Proceed at your own peril.
Hey there, kids. It's your good old Uncle Henley, and I'd officially like to welcome y'all to Knives, Nightmares, and Neon, and Eddie's Slasher podcast. Now, if you find yourself listening to this here demented little daydream, it probably means that you're in the mood for some totally twisted tales, and your good old Uncle Henley is more than happy to oblige. They say that dealing with family can be murder, and they ain't wrong, as the shallow graves at the back of my ancestral home will attest. But this little story proves, just because you're bound to somebody through the bonds of blood, doesn't always mean that they're willing to keep that blood pumping through your veins. I like to call this story Thicker Than Water.
Run!
A sudden scream erupted from the lounge room, prompting an outpouring of similar warnings.
Not in there!
Are you stupid?
He's behind you!
Just when it seemed that the panic-stricken chorus had finally reached a crescendo, the simultaneous cry of half a dozen teenage girls watching Jason Voorhees unleash bloody havoc on VHS tore through the air. In the kitchen, however, a frustrated Mrs. Denley rolled her eyes and covered the phone's handset with her free hand.
Girls,
She yelled back.
you want pizza, I'm me, to order. Keep it down. Sorry.
She said, returning her attention to the voice on the other end of the phone.
Are you still there?
The response came in the form of a deep, slowly exhaled breath.
Sorry, I'm trying to order. Are you there?
Mrs. Denley stumbled. Another breath, and this time she swore she could almost feel the heat of it emanating through the receiver.
Is this some kind of joke?
She demanded.
I'll happily take my business elsewhere.
This time, a breathy chuckle, followed by a coarse whisper.
Do what exactly?
Mrs. Denley asked, hovering somewhere between annoyance and unease.
This.
Another whisper answered, but this time it came from directly behind her. She would have screamed were it not for the 8-inch blade that had been thrust straight through her larynx from the back of her neck, instantly severing her spinal column in the process. As the blade was pulled back out, Mrs. Denley collapsed under the weight of limbs she was no longer able to feel or control. Trying desperately to speak, to warn the girls squealing in the room next door, all she could manage was a faint gurgle, followed by the bursting of the blood bubbles seeping from the wound in her throat. She watched helplessly as the killer's bare feet walked into a darkening field of vision. While she could not lift her head to see the face staring back down at her, a flood of recognition raced through her already panicked mind. Hot tears filled her eyes, and she managed another gurgle before the blade was embedded in her temple. Earlier that day, Danica had pleaded with her mother to let her stay home. Despite only being a few months older than her, the Deadly twins had never ranked high on her list of favorite relatives. Even after years worth of shared Christmas celebrations and increasingly awkward childhood birthday parties, she had often done her utmost to avoid crossing paths with her cousins wherever possible. Crimped, styled, and manicured within an inch of their lives, Madeline and Melanie were, on the surface at least, the personification of a particular brand of teen suburban glamour that Danica found increasingly distasteful. With their blonde locks, flawless complexions, and seemingly unlimited access to Uncle Jeff's credit card, the twins had launched into their adolescent years with the veracity of two young girls desperate to discard any last vestige of their childhood selves behind. The Deadly twins were envied by every girl in their grade, and the not-so-secret objects of desire for practically every boy. Even the senior boys, who 2 years earlier would have barely given either of them a sideways glance, now ogled the pair with hungry eyes and regaled their friends with an array of off-color jokes and anatomically dubious boasts about what they would do if given the opportunity to romance both twins at the same time. It was sickening, really. But Danica was not concerned with Maddie and Mel's tireless attempts to present themselves as young women, despite having only barely left their dollhouses behind. Nor was it their vaunted position in the high school's hierarchy that Danica found so troubling. Instead, it was the pair's wanton cruelty that was so easily hidden from anyone it was not directed toward. Beneath all their battered eyelashes and disarming smiles, Maddie and Mel could be as callous as they could be superficially charming. Danica could still remember the carnage they had left 6 years earlier, when she discovered what they had done to her beloved Mr. Cuddles. Her mother was allergic to cats, and had spent many tear-filled nights explaining why she could never have one to call her own. But when Mr. Cuddles had wandered into their yard, half-starved and nearly frozen to death, Danica took it upon herself to nurse the poor creature back to health in secret. However, it was a secret that would not remain hidden for long.
Yeah, just leave him alone.
Danica had pleaded one late afternoon, attempting to block their way into the garden shed that Mr. Cuddles called home.
Just make us.
Maddie laughed, mocking the stutter that often announced the onset of an oncoming seizure.
You can't stop us.
Mel chimed in, roughly pushing her to the side. She wanted to fight back, but it was too late. The ringing in her ears grew louder, and her vision began to blur. It had been that way ever since the accident, when the blood and twisted metal had taken her father, and, in exchange, had left her with post-traumatic epilepsy and a lifetime of nightmares. When she awoke, the sun had already set, and the twins were gone. Noticing the door to the shed had been left open, she climbed her way back onto unsteady feet.
Mr. Cuddles?
She asked hesitantly, while fumbling for the cord that turned on the shed's light. Something unseemly squelched beneath her toes.
Mr. Cuddles?
She asked again, finally locating the cord and snapping the light on. At first, it was hard to understand exactly what the crimson mesh she was standing in was. But as her eyes took in the bloody claw hammer, still covered in clumps of wet fur, it soon became apparent what had happened to her precious little kitty cat.
A stray dog.
Her mother had offered by way of an explanation at the time, and no one would believe that the twins had done it.
They saw you start to seize
She continued,
and ran to find help.
bullshit. It was bullshit then, and it was bullshit now that the twins had invited her to their little movie night. She couldn't have felt any more out of place, while Maddie, Mel, and the rest of their mindless peons were all bedecked in their satin pajamas. Danica still wore her usual denim shorts and favorite hand-me-down t-shirt.
Black Sabbath there, kiddo.
Her Uncle Jeff pointed at her shirt as he greeted her at the door, his smile almost a perfect reflection of the same one her father used to wear whenever she entered the room.
Did you know that your dad and I went and saw them live back in '77? That was before they went and gave Ozzy the flick. You were barely out of nappies at the time, and your mother was ropeable.
Danica offered an awkward smile and nodded. A bootleg copy of one of their concerts had been playing in the tape deck of her father's car on the night of the accident.
Anyway, hope you like some scary movies. Your cousins have picked some doozies.
Sure.
She answered, not willing to admit that she hated horror movies almost as much as her cousins. At first, the night had been tolerable. Maddie, Mel, and the rest of their friends were content to ignore her completely, and Danica took the opportunity to bury her nose in the pages of her latest library find. But once the manicures and makeup gave way to their collection of rented slasher films, the lights in the lounge room went out, putting a swift end to her only means of escape. Danica had tried moving into the kitchen, where she could, at least, continue reading and avoid the barrage of gore and naked flesh playing out on her uncle's TV. But Aunt Jackie quickly put a stop to that.
You should be in there having fun with your cousins.
She admonished, as if such a thing were possible. It was pointless to complain. No one ever listened anyway, least of all Aunt Jackie, who swore her demonic spawn could do no wrong. Instead, she merely nodded, replaced her bookmark, and headed back towards the lounge room. Psst. A whisper caught her attention as she made her reluctant way back. Danica turned and sighed when she saw the twins, waiting to ambush her in the adjacent hallway.
What'd you have to come for, freak?
Maddie hissed through clenched teeth, quietly enough not to be overheard by her mother, given the noise echoing from the TV in the next room.
Or not my choice.
She shrugged, looking to push past them.
She can be out first.
Mel cooed, putting her arm up to block Danica's escape.
She's not part of the plan.
Maddie shot back. This time, it was Mel who shrugged nonchalantly.
Plans change.
The twins exchanged a glance that caused a trickle of iced water to inch its way down her spine. As they turned their attention back to her, the rising panic caused a familiar ring to sound in her ears.
Please, just let me.
Danica never had the chance to finish her plea, as Maddie gripped her arms from behind, while Mel stifled her cries with her hand. Struggling to free herself, Danica could feel the blood rushing through her veins as her vision began to blur. It had almost been 2 years since her last seizure, and for a moment she had thought that the new medication her mother had been foisting upon her each morning had all but rendered them impotent.
Into the garage. Dad's in me. I don't. What do you think?
Fragments of the twins' voices swirled, and while she could hear the words, they no longer held any meaning. Opening her mouth, she tried to call out, to somehow get her aunt's or uncle's attention, but her brain had already betrayed her. As they shoved her through the doorway into her uncle's garage, the darkness took her. When she finally woke, face down on the concrete floor, Danica tried to roll onto her back and quickly discovered that her left arm had been broken. Attempting to stifle the scream, lest the noise bring her cousins back, she bit her tongue hard enough to feel her mouth filling with blood. Sitting up and trying to get her bearings, it took a moment to realize that the thick pool of liquid seeping out from underneath her uncle's car was not motor oil. Swallowing hard, she lifted her fingers to her eyes, taking a moment to focus on the crimson gore covering her fingers.
Uncle Jeff?
She asked hesitantly, rising to her feet. The only answer was silence and the pounding drum of her own heartbeat in her ears. At first, she saw the hammer, covered in chunks of skin and bone, just like the one the twins had used 6 years earlier. Except this time, it was not cat fur that was clumped beneath the tool's metal claw. His smile, so much like her own father's, was gone. So too was the rest of his face. Meanwhile, the neck of a broken beer bottle remained embedded in his throat. Stepping back in horror, Danica's right foot found the remnants of that very same bottle. Grunting in pain, she leaned against the car and attempted to pull the inch-long glass shard from her heel. It would have been much simpler if her left arm had been able to be moved. Instead, it hung uselessly by her side. With no small amount of effort, Danica had finally managed to wrangle the glass free from her foot and considered her next move. The twins, it would seem, had long since graduated from helpless kittens, and Danica was not going to offer them another easy kill. Placing her weight carefully on the ball of her right foot so as not to antagonize the wound further, she hobbled over to the nearby workbench. Always one to insist on the finest of toys, Uncle Jeff's garage was filled with all manner of tools, each of which was a potential weapon. Initially grabbing hold of a hefty adjustable wrench, Danica's eyes instead settled on a small hatchet that hung upon the pegboard next to an assortment of saws, chisels, and other woodworking tools. Discarding the wrench for the hatchet, she gave her new weapon a test swing before limping her way back into the house. It was time to show the twins what she really thought of them. Danica did not remember all the details about the car crash that had taken her father, but she definitely remembered the blood. At first, she thought it was her own, but then she saw the metal pole that had been driven all the way through his chest and out the back of the driver's seat. She never thought there could ever be as much blood in one place as there had been that night. But she was wrong. The lounge room still lit by the flickering glow of television static, was soaked in crimson. Between the upended chairs and spatter painting the walls, it was clear that some of Maddie's and Mel's friends had attempted to fight back. One of them, the petite redhead whose name Danica could never quite recall and never really felt compelled to learn, still had an iron fire poker clutched in her hand. Not that it seemed to do much good. The wounds to her neck were so deep that her head now lay at an impossible angle compared to the rest of her body. The rest of her friends did not fare much better, and Aunt Jackie's beloved shag carpet had been transformed into a swamp of blood and viscera. One thing that the carnage in the lounge room was missing, however, was Maddie and Mel. Wondering if the two had already made their escape, Danica thought about doing the same. If she could just make it to a neighbor's house, perhaps flag down a passing car, she could be done with this nightmare. But what if that's what they're expecting? The thought echoed in her mind, putting a swift end to her plans of escape. No, if the twins had already engineered this much wanton slaughter, there was no doubt that they could plan an ambush. Phone for help. She remembered that Uncle Jeff's house had 2 phone lines, one in the kitchen and another upstairs. The twins were forever boasting about listening in on their parents' phone calls, discovering secrets that neither would wish to become juicy fodder for schoolyard gossip. Between their father's business connections and their mother's endless supply of drunk neighborhood rumor-mongers, Maddie and Mel possessed access to all the sort of details of the town's shadier business dealings, rampant infidelity, and questionable sexual proclivities. Whether it be their checkbooks, their sullied marital beds, or in the back seat of their babysitter's car, in these suburbs, it seemed that someone was always getting screwed. And the twins were more than happy to use the information they gleaned from that upstairs phone line to solidify their teenage reign of terror. By spilling the tawdry details of a local swingers gathering, one hosted by the school's otherwise prudish vice principal no less, they had not only quickly cemented their status as high school legends, but were also directly responsible for the resignation of one of their school's most reviled faculty members. Not that Danica had much sympathy for their school's now former vice principal, but her cousins would just as easily take joy in seeing the marriages and reputations of far less objectionable townsfolk ruined, thanks to a little more than a carefully placed whisper. Making her way into the kitchen, where the nearest phone resided, Danica nearly tripped over the body of her Aunt Jackie in the process. But it was the corpse that lay next to her that really gave her pause. While she was missing her head, there was no mistaking the matching satin pajamas and pink slippers that belonged to one of the twins. Whether it was Maddie or Mel, she could not tell, but from the sheer savagery that would have been needed to decapitate their sibling, it was clear that not even their shared sororal bond was immune to their unique brand of psychopathy. It was when Danica limped over to the phone that she finally discovered where the missing head had gotten to. Staring up in horror from the kitchen sink, with empty eye sockets that appear to have been plucked clean, the final insult was a dirty dishcloth that had been shoved into her cousin's open mouth. A mouth with a small beauty spot that hovered delicately above her upper lip. It was Maddie then, surprising that Danica had always considered her to be the more dangerous of the two, if such a thing were actually possible. She idly wondered what Mel had done with her sister's eyes, but pushed the thought aside, given the urgency of her current predicament. Turning back to the phone, Danica considered the handset that had been left hanging by the cord. Unable to lift it with her injured arm, she looked around for a place to put her hatchet down, and instead settled on embedding it into Maddie's face with a satisfying thunk. It's not like she'll feel it anyway, she thought wryly. Picking up the handset, she was surprised to hear voices on the other end.
Police are already en route.
A woman's voice echoed through the phone.
Are you in the safe location?
I'm upstairs. Oh gosh, she's killed them all. My cousin has gone psycho.
Mel's voice answered through a flood of crocodile tears. That fucking bitch. Danica's face flushed red. She's trying to put the blame on me, but not this time. Slamming the phone down on its hook, she pulled the hatchet out of Maddie's head and made her way upstairs. It was time to finally set things straight. Mel heard the phone in the kitchen slam down, and the line went dead. Oh fuck, she thought. She's coming for me. Danica was never even invited. It was supposed to be a night for her sister and their friends. No one wanted that freak there. Least of all, her and Maddie.
Be nice.
Her mother had admonished at the time.
It's hard enough on your Aunt Judd having to work night shifts and raise Danica by herself.
Thanks, Mom. That worked out real well. Now you're dead. They're all fucking dead. It was just supposed to be a prank, just like all the others they had planned for that evening. Locking Danica in the garage was just the first, just a harmless prank, like the rubber cockroaches that hidden in their friends' popcorn, or hijacking Mom's phone call to the pizza place from the upstairs phone. Besides, Dad was in there, tinkering on his car as usual, and he would have let her out anyway. Instead, she smashed his face in, just like she could have sworn she had done with that mange-ridden stray that she had once tried to blame her and Maddie for. Even when Kara had broken the bitch's arm with the fire poker, it still hadn't stopped her. Instead, she just continued her rampage unfazed, wearing that expressionless gaze as she nearly took Kara's head off with her mom's favorite butcher's knife. The heavy sound of footsteps coming up the stairs brought Mel back to the present. Clutching her craft knife like some kind of holy talisman, she slowly backed into the shadows of her parents' darkened bedroom, never once taking her eyes from the open door. If she was gonna die, she sure as hell wasn't gonna be taken by surprise. A silhouette mounted the stairs and slowly made its way toward her hiding place. Mel could feel her heartbeat in her throat, and she prepared herself to strike out with her craft knife as soon as her cousin came within arm's reach.
Danica?
The silhouette asked, its voice drenched with worry.
Girls?
Aunt Jo! Mel let out a breath she did not know that she was holding and burst into tears. Running to her aunt, she buried her face into her chest and began to sob.
Danica!
She tried to explain between gasps.
Danica! She's lost it! She killed them! Killed all of them!
Liar!
Mel clung to her aunt, even as she spun to face her demonic spawn. Drenched in blood and with a hatchet raised and ready to strike, Danica looked like she had stepped straight out of one of their horror movies.
Danica?
Aunt Jo asked.
Get away from her, Mum. They planned the whole thing.
Mel felt her aunt's hand gently take hold of her own as she slowly pulled the craft knife out of her grip.
Oh, sweetheart. It's happened again, hasn't it?
She said. Before she knew what was happening, Mel felt her throat sliced open with the razor-sharp blade of her own weapon. Clutching her neck as she dropped to her knees, the last thing she saw was the flashing red and blue of police lights shining through the windows.
Don't worry, darling. I won't let them take you away.
Aunt Jo said as she dropped the blade and moved to embrace her daughter.
It's not going to be like last time.
Well now, my good old Mama Hackenslash always said there ain't no love like a mama's love. Now I can't remember the amount of times that my mama helped me to bury my little mistakes. Hope you all enjoyed that one, kids, but we're only just getting started. In the meantime, why don't you go and invite your good old Uncle Henley around for a scary movie night? After all, I'm probably hiding under your bed anyway. Till next time, kids.